Right now in the Pokemon investing space, it's a little bit of a weird one. I remember just a few months ago, there were so many things you could have bought and would have done extremely well if you did. And it was sort of obvious, I called out basically all the Sword and Shield boxes that were like 200s that were going to go up, and it happened. And even some Scarlet and Violet stuff I said was really good pickups at some prices. They've all sort of gone up. And we're in a sort of weird limbo where all the older stuff, Sword and Shield, there's still some decent buys out there, but all the obvious stuff is sort of gone now. Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet. Just this market has just changed, Pokemon investing at the moment. There used to be so many cheap boxes. Paradox Rift, I remember you could have bought them in the 90s, not too long ago. And the same thing with some of these other ones. Even base not too long ago was 90 bucks. All these boxes, Paldea evolved a few months ago, 140s. There are so many obvious things just a few months ago, and they're all gone now. And since I've liquidated some stuff and I have a decent amount of cash on hand, I've sort of realized this sort of problem, you could say, where there's no obvious buys. And, when there's no obvious buys, don't try to force anything. And, that's what I've sort of realized. Maybe this is a good thing for me. Maybe now that there's no obvious buys, it'll force me to hold my cash, and maybe a big reprint happens of some set. Maybe I am able to pre-order, some future set, and I have that cash available. And, that's what I want to kind of get out of here, showing you guys that there really are no obvious buys. So if there's not any obvious buys, you don't have to buy anything. And that's sort of where I've gotten to at this point, because I'm always looking for new plays. I'm always looking for deals online. I'm always searching for something. But I feel like I was able to find a ton of like hidden gems a few months ago, and they're literally just non-existent now because everybody knows about Pokemon. The hype a few months ago, now it's crazier. And with that being said, just everything now is just, it seems like everything is like correctly priced at, somewhat. Like, for example, let's just start with Scarlet and Violet base and work our way up. Now, I'm only talking about main sets here, booster boxes. I'm not talking about specialty sets. But Scarlet and Violet base, I feel like this is pretty correctly priced because the cards in the set, the most expensive one, I believe, is 40-50 bucks. I think it's the Gardevoir SIR. And, this set, I've always said it, is the best base set, in my opinion, of any sort of era. But there just isn't that many expensive cards. It being at 143 bucks, it's still $20 under MSRP. But, this being a base set, and just there's so many, you could say, better, Scarlet and Violet sets. This is, it's not bad whatsoever, but just it doesn't have much value. So at its price point, it seems pretty fairly priced. This box, it's getting pretty close to, the 2-year mark for a lot of these, like, very early Scarlet and Violet sets. Scarlet and Violet base, I think pretty much at this point is like pretty much 0% of getting reprinted, like 0.0001% chance. There's really no need for them to do it. So this is a pretty safe buy. But in these sorts of markets, one thing that I sort of, I guess my mindset is in markets like these, the safest buys aren't always the best buys, if that makes any sense, because there are so many new things that you can buy that if you're able to get at like a decent price, like MSRP, you can do extremely well in the short term rather than just buying an old box and just sitting on it. And, if you are using your funds for, old stuff, if you have none left for the new stuff, I mean, you can miss out on potential money. And I know that's sort of chasing, I guess you could say the hype stuff, but in these markets, that's how things work, and you can do extremely well. So to put your money in a set like Scarlet and Violet base, it's safe if you have that money allocated for long term, 100%. Even at 143 for being a base set, I don't think that's that expensive. Honestly, this, like I said, is the best base set I think pretty much ever. So, yeah, I think it's fairly priced. There's no expensive cards. It will go up in time, but I don't see this jumping anytime soon. It's one of those things where it's not expensive, but it's not a great deal. It's just all right. And that's how I see Scarlet and Violet base. It's a decent pickup. It's all right because it's not going to get reprinted. The next one, now, this one's sort of interesting. So Paldea Evolved booster boxes are 190 to 200 bucks. This is another set that's probably not going to get reprinted because it had its whole restock reprint thing like late last year. So Putty Evolved, I think at this price point at 190, it's a bit harder to say it's an extremely good deal. Like it's decent, it's definitely a good set, but at 190 bucks, honestly, if you had the extra cash, I might be going for, Silver Tempest, which is at 240, which is another 50 bucks. Maybe I know it's a lot more, but even Brilliant Stars being like just sub 300. Like if you had a little bit more money, I'd be picking up Silver Tempest over Paldea Evolved because I feel like that has a higher chance of running more in the near future than Paldea because at 240 I feel like Silver Tempest is still a decent buy. But same thing with Paldea. If it's probably not gonna get reprinted at 190 long term, it's not that expensive, but still at 190 it seems kind of expensive because just a month ago it was at like 140s, 150s. So yeah, Paldea still decent. It's a decent buy. Like that's the problem. Everything's just a decent buy. So it's like everything just seems so fairly priced. Obsidian Flames, this is the one that I would say is not fairly priced. I think this is overvalued at 180. If you look at the value in the set, it's not really there. I mean, the Charizard has been going up, but I feel like this is really because of the new people and the hype of everything. There's been some sets, I might make a whole separate video about it, that I feel like just are getting overrated right now because everything's going up and everyone thinks that some of these sets are just amazing plays and underrated. Obsidian Flames is definitely one of those. I feel like it was overhated, but now it's being overinflated. And at 180, guys, that's like Paldea Evolved prices. You pay $10 more, you have a Paldea Evolved box. Like, are we being for real right now? Obsidian Flames did get also like that restock thing late last year. It didn't do anything, but I would say this is probably one of the worst buys, in my opinion, at this price point. Paradox Rift, it's now at 155. You can find some places selling them in the 140s. It's a decent buy. I think this is another one of them that it's not as old as obviously the last three sets I showed you, but most likely this is not getting reprinted. It was sitting at 90 bucks for like literally a whole year, and then it started going up. Now at this price, if it doesn't get reprinted, it still makes sense to buy at this price point. It's basically the same price as Scarlet Violet base. And I think Paradox Rift is a decent set. I don't think it's as amazing as some people make it seem. I still think I hold my word to saying that Temporal Forces is a better set and it's going to age better than Paradox because at the time, Temporal Forces was only like 10 bucks more. It's pretty much the same thing now. Temporal Forces is only $10 more a booster box. I'd spend the extra 10 bucks and buy Temporal, but hey, maybe because Paradox Rift never gets a reprint, maybe Temporal does. Maybe this does extremely well, but it's just a decent set in my opinion. So at 155, if it doesn't get reprinted, that's still a decent buy. You guys gotta think about it. MSRP now is 161. So yeah, Paradox Rift, it's a decent buy, but it's not as crazy of a good buy as it used to be because I remember like a few months ago you could have bought these for 90 bucks. Now, Temporal Forces, I made a video earlier today talking about this. I think this one is gonna run here very shortly and it's gonna go past MSRP. Everybody's gonna talk about the booster box on Pokemon Center website, and I think it'll sell out then. Then these will probably get close to 200. That's my opinion on what's going to happen with these. And for that reason, buying right now, it might be, if you can find some deals on other websites, I would say this is a pretty good play. It's just up in the air if this gets reprinted or not, but I just don't think, even if they do reprint it, I can't imagine it being a big one, and even if they're going to reprint booster boxes. But Temporal Forces, like I said, I think it's better than Paradox. I don't own a single Paradox Rift booster box because the money I would have used for Paradox I used for Temporal because I was willing to spend a little bit more money on Temporal instead of Paradox. But yeah, Temporal I feel like it's going to run here pretty soon because of just the supply. I made a whole separate video earlier today about it. So I think it's a decent buy at MSRP, to be honest with you, just because I don't think a lot of these older Scarlet and Violet sets are going to get heavily reprinted at all. So I think any of these around MSRP are honestly not that bad of a buy, and Temporal Forces I think is a pretty good set. So yeah, I think this is a decent buy. Twilight, this definitely could get reprinted in my opinion way more than Temporal. This recently went out of stock on Pokemon Center website for the booster boxes. These are now about 180, and it's crazy. Like I said, like Obsidian Flames is just as expensive as Twilight, which makes no sense. So Twilight at 180, it's sort of, this has this is pretty much the same price as Paldea Evolved as well, but this does have the Greninja, which is still more expensive than, the Magikarp. But it's kind of weird with this set because I feel like it had its spotlight, like it had its time, and then it completely just cooled off even with this hype thing. Like not many people talk about Twilight, which is sort of weird. It's still a relatively new set. So maybe in the long run this will gain more traction, but honestly, in my opinion, this set, I don't know what it is, but the ogre pawn on this box, in my like, I don't know why it's not the Greninja, because literally Greninja is like the main card, but yeah, I don't know. Twilight for me it's a little bit of a weird set because it was super hyped up in the beginning and it was really like running, and then it slowed down and it kind of went up a little bit now that it's at 180, but yeah, but I mean there's a decent amount of sales I've been seeing here, that's like actually a good amount. So Twilight at 180, it's a little bit hard of a buy. I would say honestly at this point I would probably go for Paldea just for the reprint thing, just in case in the future this is a way newer set. So at this point I'd probably maybe hold off on Twilight because at 180 it's above MSRP, and who knows if they reprint this set. So I probably want to buy Twilight honestly at 180. Now Stellar, Stellar Crown is also a pretty new set. Stellar is it's one of those sets where it's like no one cared about it like at all, and a lot of people hated on it because it's Terapagos or whatever being the main card. But it does have the Squirtle and Bulbasaur, which I've always talked about, and I think those two cards in the long run are really going to carry the set. But at 150 for Stellar, honestly, I'd probably go with Paradox. I don't think that's a hot take, but I'd probably go with Paradox at that point because Paradox probably not going to get reprinted again. It's older, and I think the Paradox Rift just generally is seen to be a better set than Stellar, even though I believe the Terapagos is more expensive than the Groudon. But yeah, Stellar, it was a way better buy early on when you could have bought these like for $100, but at 150, being this new, it's a little bit of a tougher buy. And lastly is Surging Sparks. This is an obvious one, it's not a buy right now, just because we're getting that reprint in February. Honestly, I'm hoping the reprint is actually, I hold a lot of Surging Sparks, as you guys may very well know. I hope this gets a big reprint because I have the cash on hand to buy. So if this does get a big reprint, I am going to buy, decently heavy into it because, we've seen the strength of the set. Some people say it's overinflated, but I truly think this is, honestly, so far, I still think this is pretty much one of the best, or pretty much the best main set we've seen so far. Even with the future sets coming out, I think Surging Sparks will still be a top set. So when this does get reprinted, hopefully it's big. I will buy in. If it's not that big and maybe these prices go down maybe to $200, I don't know. It's a little bit of a harder buy then if it only hits 200. But if this gets close to MSRP, which honestly I can't see these types of things happening when things going down this much, because guys, it's at 250. So to go up down to like MSRP at 160, that's $90. It's a pretty big I guess correction, but if it does happen, I will buy in. But yeah, this is definitely not a buy out of all of these. But the point of this video and just me going through all these sets and talking about each one is just to show you guys there's really no obvious buys right now. Like the older stuff, the older Scarlet and Violet stuff is the safer stuff because they're probably not getting reprinted, but they're not that great of buys. I guess considering some of the values of some of the things in the set, like Obsidian, there's really no value there. It's 180. Scarlet and Violet base doesn't have much value, but it's 145, so it's okay. Paldea is a good set. The Magikarp, it's one of the most iconic sets or cards in this era, but it's $190. And then you have Paradox, which is in my opinion probably one of the better buys in this era right now at like 150. Probably not going to get reprinted. Has a deep set, but no extremely just expensive card in there. So everything right now I feel like is pretty fairly priced. There's just no obvious buys. And that's where, I tell you guys, for me, since I've liquidated some stuff, I have a good amount of cash, I'm probably just going to hold out and look for any deals, and then I'm able to jump on them. But, yeah, I'm not really looking to buy any of these, older things or older sets for the current prices. If I can find deals, like, for under market, I will. But other than that, I'm not going to pay market price really for any of these because, in my opinion, I'd rather just wait for some new stuff and just to buy into those and hopefully get some stuff. But even that's sort of a risk because at this point, it's so hard to get anything for a decent price, any of the new stuff. So, yeah, but just in my opinion, I'm probably just going to hold on to cash and just wait to see what happens in the future for reprints and for the newer sets. So, yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you guys have been picking up any of the older Scarlet and Violet stuff. Have you been able to find any deals? Because it's like so hard to find any deals now. Like seriously, I've been looking. They're nowhere to be found. I remember a few months ago, I was able to find so many hidden gems. It's not there anymore. So yeah, let's end this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. and I'll see you on the next one.